Hey everyone, it's Helena here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And in today's video, I'm going to give you the ultimate AI project management ChatGPT prompt guide. So I'm going to go over some of the top prompts that you can use and you can download them below as well. That will really help you level up in your project management game. So I'm going to teach you how to use AI to write things like your project plan, user stories, acceptance criteria, and so much more. And this is such a powerful tool that can really help you speed up your productivity. Now, firstly, let's talk about a good prompt and what's a bad prompt and the aspects that go into prompt. So for those of you who don't know, ChatGPT is an AI tool that popped up about a year and a half ago, and it's currently the fastest growing AI tool on the planet. And for good reason. This tool has really revolutionized how we write, how we process data, how we process and create images. And it's just such a powerful tool that you need to have in your tool belt as a project manager. So when you log in ChatGPT, this is what you're going to see. Now, let's take a look at what happens when we give ChatGPT a generic prompt versus a detailed prompt and the results that we're going to get. So here I have written a simple prompt. Let's just say that we want ChatGPT to write a project plan for an iOS app that will build a tic-tac-toe game. Okay, great. So if we put this right into ChatGPT, and what we can see is that the result that we're going to get from this prompt is going to be quite generic. So what we can see is that when we have a vague prompt, we're also going to get a response that's kind of vague. So now let's take a look what happens when we put in a much more detailed prompt into ChatGPT. So here, we have a much more detailed and advanced prompt here. So here I'm going to put the project objective is to write a project plan for an iOS app that will build a tic-tac-toe game. The action that I want ChatGPT to take is for a given project, break the project down into subtasks. Okay, and then I give it some considerations for it to watch out for. So consider the overall project, its goals, and what the success looks like. Act as an expert in the field of project management and operations, and project management. Determine how to effectively execute on the project, thinking through ways to reduce the time and effort without sacrificing success. Condensedly list out all the subtasks involved in the project, breaking them down into categories. For each subtask, include a brief list of bullet points for the steps of each subtask, and also give 1 to 3 pieces of advice that would provide insane value to help someone do the task. And for any subtask that takes longer than 1 day, further break it down into additional subtasks. Each step is 1 day or less. And then lastly, the 7th thing that I want ChatGPT to consider is also include potential areas where the project could get derailed or stalled and what to watch out for. So as you can see, this is now much more detailed. I'm telling ChatGPT exactly what I want this project plan to look like. Now, if I copy this prompt, right, back into ChatGPT, and now what we can see is that the project plan that's being generated is now much more detailed as well. We can see that in day 1 is telling us what task we can do, and it's giving us some pieces of advice on how we can accomplish these subtasks. And now we can get this entire plan day by day by day. Now we know how to complete this overall task of completing this iOS app for tic-tac-toe step by step every single day. So you can think of ChatGPT as your virtual assistant. So you have to give it very, very specific instructions, or in this case, it's also called prompts, in order to get it to perform exactly the way that you want it to perform. So we can see that, yeah, it's still going. It's telling us exactly, what we need to do every single day in order to complete this application. So now that you know the difference between a simple prompt and a more detailed prompt, you're probably wondering, well, what goes into a good prompt and what kind of aspects should I consider when I'm putting in an instruction into ChatGPT? When you're considering how to write prompts, a good rule of thumb to keep in mind is this acronym called ASPECTS. And ASPECT stands for actions, steps, personas, examples, constraints, and template. Let me go over each of them now. So an action is basically telling ChatGPT what kind of action you want it to perform. For example, an action could be generate a project management plan. It could be generate a market analysis report. It could be write a product description, etc. Essentially, the action defines the mission by specifying exactly what you want the AI to perform. Next, we have the S in aspect, and the S stands for steps. So the step is the sequential step that you want AI to take. So not only are you giving it the big overall goal, in the previous case we saw was to write the project management plan, but you also want to break that down into exactly how you want the AI to do those, to accomplish that big overall goal. Because if you don't specify the steps, it's just going to give you a vague response back, right? So here's another example here. So if you want AI to write a market analysis report, you can say step 1 is to identify the target audience. Step 2 is to research competitors and analyze their strengths and weaknesses. Step 3 is to select the best marketing channels to use. And finally, step 4 is to craft a compelling message. So, okay, you give it the action, then you divide into the specific steps you want AI to take. Then the next thing is you could also give the AI a role or a persona. So a persona is a chosen character that will have the voice and tone and style and structure of text that you want the AI to use. So for example, you can say write in the tone of Taylor Swift, or write in the tone of Oprah Winfrey, or write in the tone of Donald Trump. You're going to get a very, very different result if you tell AI to write in the tone of Taylor Swift versus tone of Donald Trump. Or you could say something like, imagine you are a seasoned lawyer. I want you to write in, using legal jargon. Or you can say, I want you to be a creative advertising executive. So the role or the persona you want AI to take will really dictate the tone of voice that you're going to get back. And if you don't specify the role or the persona, you're going to get text that sound a little robotic back. Okay. And then after you have declared the persona that you want AI to take, the next aspect is, the next part of aspect is the E, and the E stands for examples. You could also give AI examples of what you want specific text to look like. For example, maybe you want AI to write in your tone of voice, so you give AI some samples of your writing so that it can learn from your style, and then start producing more, copying the style that you have already written. Or perhaps there's a specific format that you have to follow based on what your PMO wants for specific documentation, so you can get ChatGPT to learn that format, and then it can start producing new documentation based on that format as well. Really a game changer that's really going to speed up how quickly you can produce all sorts of project documentations. And then now moving on to the C in aspect. So the C stands for constraints. So constraints work when you want your prompt to be, for example, a certain length or work within a certain confine. So an example of this could be only write short social media posts that's less than 280 characters, or summarize this article in less than 200 words. So you kind of give some parameters in which the AI can work by. And lastly, the T in aspect stands for a template. So the template defines the format that you want the output to take, right? So essentially a template is where you can establish a template guide. So this is where you can tell the AI, I want all of this in a report format. I want all of this in bullet points. I want all of this in markdown formatting, etc. All right, now that you know the basics of prompt, let's also look at some prompts that you can use to write for your upcoming projects. And keep in mind, you can download this ultimate prompt guide below. So here is the prompt that I have for acceptance criteria. Firstly, I get into a little definition of what the acceptance criteria is. Then I tell ChatGPT, while crafting your acceptance criteria, make sure you keep these in mind, right? I want you to keep in mind about the functional requirements. The functional requirements is what the deliverables must do. And then it gets into the performance requirements. So this is how well the deliverables must perform under certain conditions. The design requirements, any specific design elements that the deliverables must meet, the usability requirements, this is any standard related to the user experience or ease, and finally, any compliance requirements. Now, I also tell ChatGPT that it should write these effective acceptance criteria in a testable, clear, concise, and agreed upon by all stakeholders. And then for this task, write the acceptance criteria for the following product feature or user story. And this is where you put in the specific product feature or user story that you want acceptance criteria for. Now, with this prompt, all you need to do is copy and paste this in, and then go over to ChatGPT, which I have done so already here. And here you can see I've copied and pasted in the prompt. I have told ChatGPT that as a user, I want to be able to log in the app. And as you can see here, now ChatGPT has written the acceptance criteria for user login feature for me, divided by the 4 different types of requirements I have. Let's now take a look at the prompt that you can use to generate these activity lists. Now, I'm giving ChatGPT a role here. I'm telling ChatGPT that you are an exceptional project manager. You can even put in the specific field of project management that you want ChatGPT to be in. For example, you're an exceptional project manager in the field of construction. Your task is to create a detailed activity list. An activity list is a crucial part for project planning, detailing all the necessary tasks to bring the project to successful completion. Now I tell it what this list should detail and include. So this list will have to include the activity identifier, the activity name, and a description of the work. So I'm telling it the format that I want this activity list to take. And then I tell it the tone, the style that I want this activity list in. So I'm telling ChatGPT that the activity list should be clear, concise, and comprehensive, outlining all of the activities required to complete the project. Your ability to thoroughly outline these tasks will contribute significantly to the overall success of the project. Create a project activity list for the following project. And this is where I put in a brief description of my project. So let's go ahead and copy this, and then let's put it into ChatGPT.
And then let's say that the project is an iOS app for tic-tac-toe game. And let's see what the activity list that it generates will look like.
Great. And as you can see, it's following our structure here. It's giving the activity an identifier. And if you want a format for the identifier, you can even specify that here depending on the rules within your PMO. And then it's giving me a activity name and then a description. But as you can see, how quickly AI tools like ChatGPT can work, it's just very astonishing. And if you're not using this in your job at the moment, then your productivity is just going to be so much slower than people who know how to use these various different types of AI tools. If you want a copy of this prompt, please make sure you download it below. All right, so we have the balanced scorecard prompt right here. And what we're asking ChatGPT to do is to create a balanced scorecard for your project or organization by analyzing the financial perspective. So instead of the financial perspective, we want ChatGPT to consider what are the key financial goals and objectives of your project or organization, and what financial metrics and indicators are important to track and measure for your performance. Also, we want to take a look at the customer perspective. So who are the target customers? What are their needs, expectations, or preferences? And what kind of goals and metrics should we be measuring that's relevant for our project or organization? Then the next section we want to take a look at is the internal process perspectives. So what are the key internal processes that drive value and efficiency? How do we measure and improve the performance of these processes, and what are process-related goals and metrics that should be included in the balanced scorecard. The last section of the balanced scorecard that we're asking ChatGPT to write is a learning and growth perspective here. And so instead of this section, we have 3 different things that we want ChatGPT to consider. The first part is what skills, capabilities, and resources are necessary to support your organization. How do you foster a culture of learning, innovation, and development? And lastly, what learning and growth goals and metrics are important for long-term success? And then, so now we gave ChatGPT the structure here. So we gave it 4 sections with specific instructions of what to consider in each of these 4 sections. And then lastly, we're just going to give it the action we wanted to take, which is taking this structure that we just present to you, create a balanced scorecard for enter in your project organization. So let me copy this prompt right over here. And now let's dive right into ChatGPT. And let's suppose that our organization is Tesla. So let's just put in the name of the organization there. And then ChatGPT will now generate a balanced scorecard, as you can see here, for our organization, because Tesla is a pretty well-known organization. So ChatGPT already knows what this organization is. If your organization is newer, it wouldn't have this information. So you may want to describe the organization a bit more. So we can see that ChatGPT has gone ahead and wrote the balanced scorecard within a matter of seconds here for us and divided it into the structure that we asked it to. So we have the financial perspective, the customer perspective, the internal process perspective, the learning perspective, and then some KPIs that we can consider for each of these categories as well. So pretty amazing. And if your organization wants a slightly different structure, the PMO has a different type of template that they want to use for the balanced scorecard, just go over here and modify the prompt a little bit to fit exactly what they want. And then you can just plug in your organization's data into there and you'll have your own custom balanced scorecard within a matter of seconds. Now, this is a pretty good template that we have here, but depending on your PMO and how they want the specific structure for the change request to look like, you may have to make a few tweaks, but let's take a look at this one here. So at the beginning here, we tell ChatGPT that the change request is a formal proposal that alters some part of a product, system, or project. And here are all of the elements that we want ChatGPT to include in our change request. So we want a description of the change. So what exactly is being changed, and to write a detailed description. We want a reason for the change. So why is this change necessary? So the change could be necessary due to requirements being changed, unforeseen obstacles, opportunities to improve, etc. Then we want ChatGPT to analyze the impact of the change. So if we do make this change, what are some things we need to consider for the project scope, time, quality, and cost? And then after the impact has been analyzed, we want to take a look at the alternatives. Have any alternative solutions been considered? And then we want ChatGPT to estimate the resources required to make this change, and resources include time, money, and personnel. And then lastly is the approval status. Did the stakeholders approve this change, reject it, or is it still pending? And then the last bit of instructions here that we give ChatGPT is that change requests are crucial for maintaining control over a project and should be written clearly and concisely and be meticulously documented. So what we can see here is that instead of just saying to ChatGPT, write a change request about blah, we actually gave it a structure and we told it to write clearly and think carefully through it and meticulously document it. So because we gave it much more instructions here, we can see that by using this prompt, we'll get a much better result. Okay, now I have pasted in this change request prompt here, and also I have written out some details about the project that we want ChatGPT to write the change request for. So the project is that you are building an AI chatbot for a gym, and instead of just being able to text this chatbot, now the client wants to be able to talk to this chatbot as well. So the change is to add in the voice feature to an AI chatbot. And now that we have pasted in that prompt, we can see ChatGPT is now writing out the change request for us. And we can see it is following the structure that we gave it. It's giving us a description of the change. So what's being changed, the reason for the change, the addition of voice interaction capability is necessary to make the chatbot more versatile and user-friendly. We can see that it's actually writing this pretty well. And then in the impact analysis, it's telling us a scope, time, cost, and quality. It's giving us some alternatives that is considered the additional resources. And we can see here that it's saying that the development time is an additional 2 to 3 months. This is something called hallucination. So when ChatGPT doesn't know the answer to something, it just starts to make it up, but it still gives you a pretty good template to go off of, because you can just copy this and then just say the actual amount of time that your team estimated this additional change would take. So whenever you get the results from ChatGPT, you should also just read it over and make sure that all of the information is correct. So here is the prompt for non-functional requirements. Essentially, it gave a list of non-functional requirements for ChatGPT to consider, and then over here you just need to fill in the specific requirement, product feature, or project that you want to write non-functional requirements for. You just need to write a sentence or two on what your project entails right over here. So I told ChatGPT here to consider all of these various different types of non-functional requirements, from performance to security to reliability to scalability to usability, compatibility, maintainability, performance, supportability, legal, and compliance as well. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this non-functional requirement prompt over into ChatGPT. All right, so at the bottom here, I provided ChatGPT with the project that I want to write the non-functional requirements for, and I just wanted to write the non-functional requirements for the login feature that I'm building for my application. Okay, as we can see here, ChatGPT has written the non-functional requirements for our project here.
We can see under performance, it's telling us that the login feature needs to authenticate the user within 2 seconds. And under security, we need to implement OAuth to protect the user credentials. We need to use HTTPS. The reliability of the app, it needs to be up 99.9% of the time.
So you can see within just seconds, ChatGPT has written about 24 or so non-functional requirements in each of the categories for us. So please use this prompt the next time in your project that you need to write non-functional requirements. And if you have more categories of non-functional requirements that you want to include in your project, simply go back to the prompt and then just add in what that category may be. The role that I gave ChatGPT here is that you are an exceptional project manager. The task right here is that you're tasked with writing a project charter. The project charter defines the reason why the project has to start. And if you're studying for your PMP exam, you will know that a project cannot start unless it has the project charter, which formally authorizes the existence of the project and assigns the project manager and allows the project manager to apply the organization's resources to the project. Now, here are the components of the project charter. First, we have the project purpose. This is the reason why the project has to be undertaken. So is it a legal reason? Is it to become more productive? Is it to save money? Is it to raise revenue? That would be the project purpose. Next, we have the high-level project description, which is a summary description of the project. Next, we have the boundaries. This essentially tells you what's included in the project, what's within the scope, and more importantly, what's not going to be in the scope. It's really important that you define this up front so that you don't experience scope creep down the road. Next, we have the key deliverables. This is basically the main deliverables that your project and your product will have, and it will be further elaborated in your project scope statement, which you will create after the project charter has been signed. The next level is your high level requirements. This is basically the top level of your WBS or work breakdown structure. This will describe the main features that will be included in your project. Next, we have some high level risk. This is an initial brainstorm of what could go wrong with your project. So you could include risk from political, social, economical, and technological factors. And it's important that you understand the risk upfront so that you know what you're dealing with throughout your project. And risk management is definitely not something that you can skip throughout your project. The next component of your project charter is the project objectives and related success criteria. So this basically defines what success looks like for your project. What are the KPIs that needs to be met, and how do you measure project success? Is it that we raised our revenue? Is it that our customers are more engaged, etc.? The next area is a summary milestone schedule. So a milestone is an event in your project that has 0 duration. And the reason you have the schedule is because it tells you when significant events on your project is hit. This is important, especially when you have a longer term project and you don't just want your milestone to be at the end when the project is finished. There may be checkpoints in between that represent significant turning points in your project as well. And those are called milestones. The next section is your pre-approved financial resources. This is the people that are going to be working on your project, the key stakeholder list. This is the list of high level people that's going to influence the success of your project. And then lastly, you have the project exit criteria. The exit criteria represents the performance, metrics, conditions, or other measurements that must be met to conclude the project. And then lastly here, you can put in some information about your project. I have pre-written this, and here is where you fill in all the information about your project. You can be as detailed as you want to be. So the project that we're currently going to write the project charter for is the project is to build an AI chatbot for an e-commerce company that sells nutritional products. The chatbot will allow their website visitors to get support and product recommendations 24/7, 365. All right, so this is our entire prompt here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Then I'm going to go over to ChatGPT, and then I'm going to paste in this prompt. And now we can see what it has written for us. So you can see within a matter of seconds, we have our completed project charter. So the project charter is to build the AI chatbot. We have the purpose right over here, then the description, the boundaries, what's in scope, with what's out of scope, what the key deliverables here will be, the high level requirements, some project risk, and the objective, summary milestones, etc. So you can see it followed our structure to a T, and then you can just copy and paste this result and modify it to suit your specific project. But using ChatGPT will just save you so much time because it gets that initial draft done for you so that you don't have to spend hours and hours of your time writing all of these documentation. And you can focus more of your time on the strategic elements of project management. If your PMO has a different structure for the project charter, all you need to do is go in here and modify this prompt, and then you will get a custom prompt to write project charter for your organization. I start off by telling ChatGPT that the task, or what I wanted to do, is to write a project management plan. So I could have just left it here and just said, write a project management plan about, and then describe the project. But what you're going to see and what you're going to get is a very, very vague plan. So the more detailed the instructions that you give ChatGPT, the better the results that you're going to get. And you can see this particular prompt is almost a page and a half. All right, let me walk you through the different components here. The next part I tell ChatGPT is that the project management plan combines all this information into a cohesive and integrated approach to managing the project. Typically, the information includes the selected project lifecycle, development approach of key deliverables, variance threshold, baseline management, timing, and types of reviews, etc. So now that I told ChatGPT what I want from the plan, I then detail out exactly how I want ChatGPT to write this particular documentation. So I go into the various different components I want it to write. And then lastly, I will give it some information about the project. So the various different components I want it to write about include the project lifecycle, which will describe the lifecycle that will be used to accomplish the project. Then the second component of the project management plan will be the development approach. This will document the specific approach that you will take to create the key deliverables, whether you're using predictive, agile, or hybrid. The next component is all of the subsidiary management plans. So this is a list of subsidiary plans that will be part of your project management plan. This can include the scope management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan, etc. The next component is your scope variance threshold, which will define how much variance in scope will be acceptable to your stakeholders. The next component will be your scope baseline management, which will describe how the scope baseline will be managed, including responses to acceptable, warning, and unacceptable variances. The next component will be the schedule variance threshold. Okay, so instead of the scope variance, we have the schedule variance now, which will define the acceptable schedule variances. So, for example, if an activity was supposed to take 10 days to complete, it ended up taking 11. Is that acceptable? Okay, what if it took 20? Is that now acceptable? Probably not. So the schedule variance will define where that variance threshold will be. Then we have the schedule baseline management, which will describe how the schedule baseline will be managed, including responses to acceptable, warning, and unacceptable variances. And then we do the same thing for the cost. Remember, the triple constraint that we have on our project is the scope, schedule, and cost. And then in the project management plan, we are asking ChatGPT to help us with the variance and the baseline management of all three different components. Then we just had to give it some more information about project, and just like that, we will have our project management plan generated. Now, depending on the type of project you use and the organization and the PMO, there may be different structures that is required when you're writing the project management plan. And if this is the case, then you can take this baseline template and then just add more components to this plan accordingly to what is required for your project. But I hope what you take away from this is the structure that you want to think about when you're writing these different types of plans. So as you can see, you're giving ChatGPT a task, you're giving it the specific style and different components that you want it to include. And you can also include like a tone of voice, for example, write concisely, write like a professional document writer who is also a project manager. That is something else you can add in the prompt right over here. And you're describing the exact task in a very condensed and concise fashion. That is the important thing here. So let's try out this prompt now. So it has already finished writing the project lifecycle and the key activities, key deliverables, entry criteria, exit criteria, and key reviews for all 5 phases of the project. Next, they went into the development approaches. It's telling us that we'll use an iterative and incremental approach. Then it has written the subsidiary plans. And we can even, if we don't like something here and we want to include something else in our project management plan, we can also, for example, in this case, ChatGPT just told us what all the subsidiary plans are. And if we wanted to write it out more, we can say expand on section 3 and write out all of the subsidiary plans. So you can converse with ChatGPT, and it does actually have memory. So whenever you give another prompt over here, it remembers all of the previous prompts that it has, that you have already written in this particular chat thread. Okay, so it has written the scope variance, scope baseline management, as well as schedule and cost variance and baselines here as well. So you can see that within a matter of seconds, we have a boilerplate project management plan that we can already start using and run with. Here, I give ChatGPT a role, so I told it to imagine that you are a senior product manager responsible for creating comprehensive product roadmap. And then I told it that the roadmap will outline the strategic directions, key milestones, and major initiatives that the the product roadmap outlines the strategic direction, key milestones, and major initiatives for the product's development and evolution. Now, I give it the structure that I want ChatGPT to generate for the project roadmap. I tell it all of the components I want the product roadmap to have, and then finally, I tell it what this particular product is all about. So the different components of the product roadmap would include the product vision, which defines the overarching vision and long-term goals for the product, the market analysis, what the current market landscape looks like and what the customer needs may be, the business objectives, the release plan. This will detail the time frame of when the planned product will be launched, the milestone and timelines, the feature prioritization, prioritize features and initiatives based on the customer's needs, and there are various different techniques you can use to do this, the dependencies, the resource allocation, and communication and stakeholder alignment. Finally, here I also tell ChatGPT to evaluate and iterate. So define the process for monitoring and evaluating the product roadmap's progress and impact, and establish feedback loop to gather the user's insight and regularly reassess and iterate upon the roadmap here. All right, so all you need to do here is just copy and paste this prompt into ChatGPT. And I put the product here as the product is the creation of iPhones for Apple. And now let's see what ChatGPT will write for the product roadmap. And as we can see, it's only taken a couple seconds to write all of this. And if we want to refine it further, we can tell ChatGPT the exact section that we don't like, and then tell it to expand upon that, or some things to fix up in that as well. Also, if your company has a different structure for writing the project roadmap, what you can do here is just take out the components that doesn't suit your project, and then add in the components in that your PMO wants to add in. So I started off by giving ChatGPT a role. So I told ChatGPT that you are a senior purchasing manager. Then I told it the action I want it to take. You have been tasked with creating a RFP or request for proposal to solicit proposals from vendors for product and services your company intended to purchase. The RFP is a critical document that outlines the company's requirements, expectations, and evaluation. Generate an effective RFP while addressing the following. So now I give ChatGPT the structure that I want it to use with all of the different sections that I want included in my RFP, considering that the beginning will include the introduction and background. Then I want it to go into the scope of work. So this is exactly what the vendors needs to do. Then I get into the vendor qualification. This will specify the qualification and experience that you want the vendors to have, what makes them eligible, and experience level, certifications, etc. Then again to the proposal guidelines. Then again to the evaluation criteria, timeline and submission details, terms and conditions, any clarifications and questions, the proposal format and documentation that I want the vendors to respond in, and any appendices that are necessary. And then in the last portion here, that this is where I will describe the goods and services that I want the vendor to procure for me. And to use this prompt, all I need to do is copy and paste this prompt right over here, and then over here I just have to fill out what it is that I want the vendors to procure, and then we can go into ChatGPT and try this out. Okay, I have copied and pasted the prompt into ChatGPT, and I said the service that I'm trying to procure is I want to purchase janitorial services from my 5-story, 30,000 square feet building. And after I entered in the prompt, we can see that ChatGPT has started to write. Now it has now followed the instructions that we have given it, starting with the introduction and background. We want to have a safe, welcoming, clean environment for our staff and employees. So the scope of the work is daily cleaning, floor cleaning, waste removal, periodic deep cleaning and sanitization. The vendor qualifications here include that the vendors demonstrate experience in janitorial services, adequate certifications, etc. The proposal guideline, it will include an executive summary, solution approach, pricing, implementation plan, evaluation criteria, timeline submissions, terms and conditions, clarification questions, and also the proposal and format. So you can see that ChatGPT has followed our instructions to a T. Now, to make this particular prompt even more customized to your project, you can do a couple of things. First of all, you can consult your PMO to see what components of the RFP is relevant for your organization. For example, if the terms and conditions is not something relevant to you, you can take this out and replace it with another component that you do want in your RFP. Another thing you could do is to basically tell ChatGPT the writing style that you want. So you can put in a past RFP that maybe you wrote by hand. That is a good example of the tone style that you want ChatGPT to do. So what you can do in the beginning is say, hey, I want you to learn from this tone and style, and I want you to mimic it for future RFPs. Essentially, you have given ChatGPT examples that you wanted to work with, and then you can copy and paste in this prompt so that ChatGPT knows the format, the different components in it, and what kind of RFP and what kind of project you want write RFPs for. My risk register prompt. So this is divided into a couple of different sections. We start off the risk register with the risk identification. This is where we identify all the risk that may be associated with the project. Next, we get into risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is the ways that we can deal with the risk that does occur. And then lastly, we get into secondary risk. So secondary risk are risks that may occur because the risk mitigation strategy is implemented to offset the primary risk that we just spoke about. So let's walk through each of these prompts and then actually put it into ChatGPT to see the kinds of results that we will get. In terms of risk identification, very clearly at the top, we give ChatGPT the role, the action that we wanted to take, which in this case is to identify potential risk that could pose as a threat to the project. And we want ChatGPT to identify both the internal and external risk. We're starting off by listing all the external risk, then we're focusing on the internal risk, such as resource availability, team expertise, etc. And then we're asking ChatGPT to get even more specific in dealing with risk like project scope, timeline, deliverables. Then it's going to any risk associated with stakeholders and communication. And then we're thinking about risk related to project budget and financials. And lastly, we're asking ChatGPT to think about risk related to project dependencies and external dependencies like vendors and third parties. By laying it out like this, we are actually helping ChatGPT out. Instead of just saying, identify all the risk related to blah, we are telling it, okay, consider all of these factors when you're brainstorming so that it has more of a blueprint. Now let's go over to ChatGPT. And let's say our project is to construct a 6-story building in Orlando, Florida, and we want to brainstorm all of the risk associated with this project. Let's enter it into ChatGPT here and see what it comes up with. And as you can see, it's already brainstorming all of the external risk here for us: fluctuations in the real estate market, regulatory changes, competitors who come up with new developments, natural disasters in Florida, such as hurricanes. Wow, so it's actually doing a pretty good job. And then it's going into the internal risk as we have prompted to do. Then it's getting into scope, timeline, deliverable risk, budget risk, communication risk. So now that we have all of our risk done, then we can go on to the next portion of our prompt, which is to come up with risk mitigation strategies for all of the risk above. So we can just copy and paste this prompt here. And now ChatGPT will help us come up with ways that we can mitigate all of the risk above. For example, for market conditions, it says the mitigation strategy could be to conduct regular market analysis, right? And then the last portion of this prompt is to add in the secondary risk, and then we can again just copy this prompt here, and now it's getting through all of the secondary risk here. This is a 3-part prompt. So the first portion, we brainstormed a list of risk. In the second portion, we came up with a list of risk mitigation strategies for all of the identified risk above. And we can see that ChatGPT has done that here for us. And you can even put in further prompts if you want this result to be even more specific. And lastly, we asked it to brainstorm some secondary risk here for us, and has done so. And it has done it in the matter of minutes, which is just absolutely incredible. So I'm telling ChatGPT that when it's writing the WBS for the project, to consider all of these various elements, and then the structure of this prompt is then I tell ChatGPT to write a prompt for the following project. And the example I have here is the project is the construction of a 4-bedroom home. And the elements I'm telling ChatGPT to consider include the project definition. So what's the primary objective of the project? What are the main phases? Then how do we subdivide the phases into tasks? Are there any task dependencies? I also tell ChatGPT to estimate the task duration, assign the resources, create a hierarchical structure, because remember the WBS is like a tree structure. Finally, review and refine. So review the WBS to ensure completeness and accuracy, and document everything in a hierarchical list. Now, on top of the WBS, there is also something called the WBS Dictionary. So the WBS Dictionary goes along with the WBS. It's basically complementary to the WBS. What it shows is more information about each of the boxes that you find in the WBS, because the tree structure, you can't fit a lot of information on there. But so what you want to do is have the WBS Dictionary, which allows you to get a deeper understanding about the various different elements within the WBS. So here is a prompt that you can use to write your WBS dictionary. So in the WBS dictionary, you can find these information. So essentially, I'm helping ChatGPT out to tell it exactly what I want in the WBS dictionary here. So at first, I'm telling ChatGPT I want you to create this WBS dictionary, and then I go on to say that the WBS dictionary should provide detailed information for each work package and summary level at the control account level. It should include the code of account identifier. It should include the description of work. It should include any assumptions and constraints about that work package. It should also include information about the person who is responsible for completing that work package. It should also include the schedule milestones, associated schedule activities, the resources required, the cost estimate, quality requirements, acceptance criteria, technical information or reference, and finally, any agreement or contract information. Then I tell it, now write a comprehensive WBS dictionary for the following project. So once we have our prompts down, all we need to do is just copy and paste this into ChatGPT and have it generate. So I'm going to make this a multi-step prompt. So I'm going to have ChatGPT generate the WBS first, and then I'll have it generate the WBS dictionary. Okay, once I have popped in my prompt here, we can see that ChatGPT has gone to work and wrote an entire WBS for the construction of the home that we wanted to construct. And then following that, I asked ChatGPT to please generate a matching WBS dictionary that goes along with the WBS structure that I has just generated, and then has come up with the detailed WBS dictionary that goes along with this. And you can always customize this prompt a bit to suit your own needs. I hope you found this video helpful, and please like and subscribe. Also, you can download this exact prompt below. The link is in the descriptions. Thank you so much for joining me for today's training video, and I shall see you soon.